So I'm going to do a quick demo of the Dots platform, just to share with you that this is a demo where we took for context. We decided to take an example of an organization that is doing a longitudinal study around water sanitation and hygiene. And essentially, what the study does is it's trying to understand perceptions, attitudes, and behaviors that define how individuals in rural or urban India and Kenya make decisions around the sanitation facilities that they use and their adherence to the usage of those facilities. And essentially, the way that we've set up the platform, all of it is synthetic data, it's all generated data. But the way that it's set up is that to begin with, you have a demographic questionnaire, essentially, where whoever is the researcher is able to add very specific bits of data, like the name of the participant, select which country, the state or county, and the demographic questionnaire is largely a quantitative template. And then the idea is that, I mean, what we are trying to simulate is a study that happens, say, over 6 months, where initially researchers go and recruit the participants and then go back every month or so to repeat a deeper ethnographic sort of interview and observation exercise. So the demographic questionnaire does this. It has radio buttons, the meta tags that Yashna talked about, and also being able to select multiple options for certain things. We then, let's very quickly look at one of the hypotheses. See, hypotheses two, right? This one has you select which respondent that you are interviewing from the list so that it gets tagged back and you have access to all the demographics data, and you'll see how it helps. And then you can have a mixed method template, right? So here we have a mix of quantitative questions, but also short form qualitative questions like the one that Yashna mentioned that was used by our partner to determine the reasons for absenteeism for these young girls who were coming for the after school program. And then, an open ended text box where the interview transcript can be added. Let's see what that looks like, right? So on a platform like this, we've added the demographic questionnaires, let's say for 100 participants, right? 50 from India, 50 from Kenya. What happens on Dots is that when you set up a template, and as soon as you start having some data, what we do is we set up an overview dashboard. Now, this gets set up automatically. It takes all the quantitative questions and visualizes them this way. And of course, you can kind of change some of these. So I don't want to see a bar chart. I want to see it as a pie chart, so on and so forth. I can say, I just want to see the data from this province or state of India and kind of, start kind of looking at the data that way. So it allows you to get that first overview. The qualitative data that you add becomes available in a format that's now become quite familiar to many of us, which is the AI chat. So you can start chatting with your data as the data has come in to start getting a broad overview around what the data is saying. I've asked a question here: what are the primary reasons that respondents are unhappy with their current sanitation solutions? And it sort of gives me a summary around inadequate facilities, stigma and fear, economic barriers. But what it also does is it tells you what it is referencing when it is coming to this conclusion, right? It is referencing very specific chunks of data from the raw data. And I can then also potentially, I can click on that data and see the actual raw transcript from which this has been got. Coming back for a second to the demographic questions, right? So if I see the demographic questionnaire, all 100 responses, I can also start drilling down response wise in the data. So I go to the response wise tab and I say, let's see what kind of toilet facilities these respondents are using. It starts giving me this data, it visualizes it for me. it also shows me all the responses. And this becomes really useful when you're looking at qualitative data. But then I want to filter this, right? I want to see very specifically, how this is playing out in India, right? And so it gives me a filter of just the India data. And then I want to break it down based on, let's say, the type of residence, right? So in India, we can see how it breaks down across rural, formal urban, and semi-formal urban. So these are, low income settlements, and how are people dealing with it in those situations, right? So we start kind of seeing, that data get visualized this way. And all of this gets set up automatically. So it gives you a way to start engaging with your data without having to, sit with a data scientist, get that going. The other thing is, now this is how you start drilling down into the quantitative data, but how do you drill down into qualitative data, right? And this is where our ability to annotate or code the data brings in certain very scientific ways of working with qualitative data. So what you can do is select pieces of text and tag them with sub themes or tags. So we have three levels at which you can tag. And here, a researcher has gone and tagged all of this. On our platform, on Dots, you can do completely manual tagging. So our partners who are doing deep qualitative research studies often are using completely manual tagging. But our nonprofit partners, who are the volume and the velocity of the data is so high, that they use AI supported tagging, where AI, based on the context of the platform and the data collection and your themes, suggests what snippets or fragments of text need to be tagged with which of the tags or themes, right? So you do this. Now you've gone through, your 100 odd responses, you've done the tagging, or you've used AI assistants to do the tagging. Where does it show up, right? It shows up on what we call the annotation explorer, right? So here I've selected it so that it's showing me the annotations only from the first hypothesis. And, you can go through, you can see how across different themes, certain tags show up, what is the count. Again, it starts giving you a little bit of a flavor of which way the data is leaning, but you can also read each and every one of the fragments. You can click on one of them and go and read the data in more detail. But even before you do that, what if I can summarize it? So I summarize all these text fragments on my screen and I'm able to see this summary. But that's, when you have a summary of all the data, that's very useful. But this is 100, pieces of data. And frankly, usually people are working with a much larger set of data over a period of time. So what happens if I filter a little bit? Because I have a sense based on AI chat that I want to understand specifically what people are saying in rural contexts, and especially those who are on the lower end of monthly incomes, right? And so I can start seeing what people who lie in that demographic are saying, what came up in their interviews, and then I can summarize that as well. And then I'm able to get a snapshot of, what did Abdul Rahman say, or what did Omondi Ovino say, and how that all comes together. But of course, I can, then click through and I can kind of read these text fragments in more detail. I can see, how else it has been tagged, some of the key demographic functions and how they show up. Lastly, we have the ability to set up custom reports. Now, this is something that my colleague set up earlier today, which shows a report that focuses very specifically on an aspect of the first hypothesis, which was investigating what is the role of religious beliefs in, how people choose their sanitation practices. And so what this does is it allows you to set up these custom reports, publish them, share them with stakeholders who can then see here, Dhwani, my colleague, has put a little bit of text explaining, what each row of the report is. It shows you the religion demographic in our data set overall. So you can kind of look at that. It gives you a district-wise breakdown. Largely, this happened in these districts, so this is the sort of breakdown of that. It gives you a count of the annotations under ritual religious beliefs. So ritual purity and pollution is a big factor. It pulls out a few key annotations or the text fragments around religious beliefs. And then, you start seeing some of these heat maps, right? So let's look at the emergent annotations versus religion, right? Like, so shows up with what annotations across age groups, across residence type. This is, of course, very editable, configurable, and also seeing what sort of facilities people are using across, by various religions. And she had asked this question around, do religious beliefs influence people's toilet usage in AI chat? And, she saved that chat and added it over here. So she sort of copy pasted it from AI chat. And of course, we have a lot of the filters available. So you can start, even with a report, start kind of filtering down the data.